today's agenda is what is a website and how do websites work and what is phishing, because it's kind of helpful to understand. If we're going to learn a little bit about websites, we can learn a little bit about phishing. And then something called backend. What's backend? You might hear about it when people talk about websites and things that are on the back end, what in the world it means, and we'll take a look at that, and I'll be able to show you some things on it as well. So the World Wide Web, at the simplest explanation possible, is a set of interconnected documents and media. That's really what it is. The World Wide Web is a set of interconnected documents and media, but we don't necessarily know how they're connected. So that's what we're going to go through today, is to learn how all of these documents and media are connected so that we can be sitting at our computers and on our smartphones, and we can get to so much information and content that's around the world. So these documents include websites, illustrations, documents, paper, text, photographs, movies, and audio. I mean, podcasts are part of the web. And so these are all different types of documents and media, and we'll see some variations of these coming into play, but these are the basic types. We'll obviously see 3D and virtual reality and other things like that, but they're all basically forms of documents and media, and we get them from the World Wide Web. So there's two ways the web is interconnected. There's the physical way, which uses the internet. The web is something that takes advantage of the internet. The internet is actually more than just the World Wide Web, but the web uses the internet. The internet consists of the cables and the computers and the networks and all the hardware and systems that allow us to do things back and forth between each other via texting, messaging, Zoom calls, virtual reality, other things like that. And that's the physical part of how the world is connected. It has to be physically connected in some way. There are some wireless connections like with satellites, but they have to have some kind of a network connection in order to communicate with each other, just like a telephone has to have a connection to communicate, or plumbing. If you turn on the water spigot, it has to have a connection to a plumbing system for you to get water to come out of the pipe. So that's one way we are interconnected. The other way we're interconnected is through software. And this is what makes the web the World Wide Web. We have a type of software called a browser. That browser sits on our computer, it sits on our smartphone, it sits on a tablet. Common names are things like Chrome and Microsoft Edge and Safari. Those are browsers that are one way we connect to the World Wide Web. They connect to files that are somewhere else on the internet. These are called HTML files, and I'll explain what HTML is. But there are files that sit on computers somewhere at some cable, somewhere off on the internet somewhere. So we've got browsers and we've got HTML files, and they allow us to connect. So web pages are what are made with HTML. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it determines how things are displayed and what gets displayed when we look at them with a browser. So HTML determines what shows up in our web browser when we look at it. And I'll actually show you some examples of HTML that we'll be able to change how something actually displays as we go through some things later on in this presentation. An HTML document is a type of computer file. This is a file called example.html. You might know files that have a .doc or a .xls or a .doc or a .txt. This is an HTML, and at the beginning of every HTML file, it's made up of text, but there's a little caret and an exclamation mark and a phrase that says doc type space HTML and a caret. That tells your computer that this is an HTML file. That's what it's there for. And that's actually in the text of the file. And so then you said HTML, then there's something that says body, and that tells your browser, this is what I want you to look at and determine how it should be displayed. And then you'll see some text that has a heading style. This is a formatting command in HTML. So whenever you see these little carets, that is a command that is telling your browser what to do. Like any other software, you have to tell your computer what to do. These are commands that tell your browser what to do. And then at the end of the text of the bottom of the file, there is a caret, a slash, HTML, another caret, and that tells it you're done with the document. This is the end. So this tells you the beginning, the type of document. This is the beginning of it. This is the end, and everything in the middle you should pay attention to, Mr. Web Browser or Miss Web Browser, and display it on my screen for me. And that's what an HTML document is. It's a file. And so when you go out to the internet, your browser says, go get me a file. So what does HTML include? It includes formatting commands. It includes text that gets displayed. It includes any media, like a picture or an image or a graphic. And it includes links, which are really valuable. And it might include some software. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. A hypertext link is what makes the web so powerful, is that when you look at a book or a piece of paper, and you look at that piece of paper, you are just looking at the piece of paper in front of you. But if you want to go to another book, you've got to go to a shelf. Imagine it's a library. You've got to go to a shelf, pull another book off the shelf, open it up to that page. What hypertext links do is they give you the ability to link a page in one book to a page in another book, so that you can just click on it or tap on it, and it takes you from one page to another page. That's the magic of a hypertext link, is that you can just connect things with what is called a hypertext link. So if you're thinking, gosh, I've got this library, I've got full of thousands of books or millions of books, how do I reference things that I want to reference? Well, you can include a citation. Remember things like citations or footnotes, but somebody's got to drag and go find that other reference and find it on a shelf and pull it off. The advantage of a hypertext link in the World Wide Web is that you can connect a footnote or a reference or anything to another location on the internet just with something called a hypertext link. So as long as you have two documents or that are two HTML documents that are on the web, you can connect one to any other document through a hypertext link. So a hypertext link is something called the A element, okay? And it begins with a special HTML code that has caret A, and it says href equals, and then it has the URL of where you want that link to go to. And then it has the text that will display, and then it has a closing. Whenever you see these backslashes, that's a HTML formatting command that says, I'm done with this part of it right now. So you have an opening letter like an A and a closing letter like an A. And what happens is that this is a paragraph that gets displayed, and it's displayed over here as the A element. This is a link that gets displayed. The actual link to the HTTPS and the href and the A don't get displayed. The text visit w3schools.com exclamation point gets displayed, but it is in blue and it is a hypertext link. And so this A element is everything, different part of HTML is called an element. So this is what actually is linked. So you can imagine on sites like phishing emails and things like that, they could put something like bankofamerica.com, but the actual link where it takes you to might not be Bank of America. And that's how phishing typically tries to work, is they try to create false links because they know you typically won't check this. You'll typically just look at the actual text that's displayed here. And we're going to actually try that out. So a website consists of many HTML files. If an HTML file is a web page, a website is strictly a bunch of HTML files in a folder of some sort on a computer somewhere out on the internet. So this website sits on a disk drive somewhere out on the internet in some place called a data center that hosts websites. So data centers that are run by Google host Google websites. Ones that are run by Amazon host Amazon, but Amazon sells web hosting services to other companies. And so there are internet service providers and website hosts that sell hosting services to companies that don't want to run their own. But this is simply a computer somewhere out on the internet that has a set of files that are HTML files on some disk drive somewhere. It's like the files on your computer, only the files on your computer typically are not HTML files. They're typically documents and spreadsheets and folders and PDF files and things like that. These are HTML files, and the host keeps these computers running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they have high-speed connections to the internet. So when then we enter a website, we can go find it on the internet. So finding websites can be done by using a search tool like Google, or you can type the address if you know techexplorercommunity.com, or if you know google.com or apple.com, you can type the address directly in your browser. And addresses are the way that people find things on the web. The address is called a URL for Uniform Resource Locator, and there's parts of it. Okay, so part of it is the protocol. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transport Protocol, and the S means it's secure. So that tells the computers on the internet how it should send the message. There's typically a set of a colon and some slashes, and whenever you see colon, slashes, they're usually called separators because they tell the computer, hey, I'm done with the protocol part. You're going to see something different. And this www tells a computer on the internet, this is a World Wide Web message that's going out there, or address. And then you have the domain name that is out there. So these are protocols and the information about the URL. So the protocol just tells computers how to go fetch the data. When you ask a computer, when you ask your web browser to go out to the internet, you're basically playing a game of fetch like with a dog. You're throwing a bone and you want your browser to go out on the internet and send a message that says, bring back something to me. And you want it to bring back a website. So the protocol tells it how to go fetch the data. The separators are there just so the computers know what's before and after. The www stands for World Wide Web, and the domain name is the location. Where is this stuff I want to get to on the internet? Now, instead of www, you could have something else that you probably recognize. If you got a little @ sign, that would tell the computers that you're looking to send or receive an email message. But this is www. So it's a web message as opposed to an email message. So sometimes these will be a little bit different, but we use the web so much that we don't often even have to type it in the browser. And usually you only have to type in this part here, like google.com as an example. Now, all of this is standardized around the world by a company called an organization, not a company. It's a nonprofit called the World Wide Web Consortium. You can look it up at w3c.org. They consist of the biggest 1,000, 4,000, I don't know how many thousands of tech companies, governments, organizations. They get together and they decide what should be standard for HTML, what should be standard for domain names, what should be standard for all of these things, so that we can go out to the internet and pretty much know that if we buy a Mac or an iPhone or a Windows computer or Android or use Linux, stuff's going to work on the World Wide Web because it's standardized. And that's what makes it possible for us to use it so easily. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about phishing. Okay, phishing, not with an F, but with a PH, typically uses text on a display of a web page that does not go to the correct domain name. An example might be something that says Bank of America, but instead of going to bofa.com, it goes to something like bofam.com, which is not really Bank of America. And so basically, because of the ability to create a link with text on HTML, you can take somebody to a false location for that text. And that's one of the things that has to do with phishing, and why it's so successful, because a lot of people just don't know to check on different things. Now, phishing is getting more sophisticated, and people are sending messages out saying, oh, by the way, your order is going to ship unless you call us to cancel it. And I'm seeing a lot of those emails now. And so the idea is that you call and they collect your financial information to cancel an order that you never placed. So they're getting more sophisticated at trying to make them more personalized messages. One of the biggest challenges of phishing has to do with short URLs. This is a short URL that I use for sending people out a link to a free membership. And I'm going to show you some ways you can check to see if it is not a valid URL or not. So we'll check on that, and we'll take a look at that later on after we finish with these slides. And these are some examples of URL shorteners that you can utilize that are just convenient and useful, that can be helpful for you. Now, there's this idea of front end and back end to websites. This is something that a lot of people are challenged with. The front end is what you see in front of you. The back end is what goes on behind you. So a good way to think about it is like when you go to sit down at a restaurant for a meal and you order food, you are seeing the serving tables, you're seeing what comes out to you, you're seeing the items in glasses, food on plates, all prepared. But behind, somewhere in a kitchen, is the back end that's fixing all of that up for you, cleaning the dishes, preparing the materials. So computers and websites actually have what are called a front end and a back end. The front end is what we see in our web browser. The back end is what might be going on the internet with calculating things like when you fill out a form, or when you want to get a calculation done, or you want to get an image drawn, or you want to get an AI response from a chat. That's what's going on the back end. And there's a lot of programs and software that goes on the back end that makes web browsers more functional. So it can consist of forms, shopping carts, directories, calculators, and the software that's used to run the back end is oftentimes called CSS or JavaScript or Python, SQL. There's more. There's just a tremendous amount, because your web browser is basically a tool to display information, but it can be connected up to a computer over the internet that it can communicate with and send information back and forth to update it. So when you're shopping on Amazon and you browse at different items show up. Or when you're looking at something and filling out forms, as you fill out a form, results might pop up. So you have front end and back end, and this software is all done by these different types of software. And we'll be able to take a look at some examples of that as well. So sometimes the software is embedded in the website, so it comes down in the HTML. Sometimes it's connected to a server, but it's considered back-end software because it does more than just what the basic HTML does. So let's take a look right now and see if we can find some examples of things that we may want to look at. So I found this website. This is actually w3schools.com. And on the left-hand side here is the HTML document. On the right-hand side is what will be displayed on a website. We're going to get some ads here, and we'll try and stop them if I can. So this says doc type, HTML, body, and underneath the body it says the content of the body element is displayed in your browser. And look what's on the right side. This is what would actually be displayed on your browser. So if I click my cursor here and it said, I'd like to add something else, and click a period, and then I click run because I'm using their website, you'll see that extra sentence shows up. So that's how HTML works. Somebody has created a set of text in a HTML document, and when your browser opens it up, it displays it like this. If I put my cursor here and put a carriage return for a couple of lines and I click run, it'll change how it looks. Well, in this case, it doesn't because I don't have a paragraph command. There's a special command in HTML that lets you display paragraphs. You just don't hit a carriage return to actually do it. So there's a little bit of formatting. Now, I'm actually working with HTML code here so that I have to use HTML commands. There are things called WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, editors that most websites have for people that don't want to know HTML can use to do that. But let's take a look at something else in HTML here. This is a document with a heading with a style and a background color. And it shows up with a heading 1 style, that's the size of a paragraph. And there's a background color of red that goes all across of it. This is the back, tells it it's a heading 1 style. And this says background color red. And what I want it to display is hello world ! And there's the end of the heading 1 style. The next item is a paragraph. This is a paragraph. And so I can add something to the paragraph. Here's more to the paragraph. And I can run that, but it'll still be part of the same paragraph. If I want to start a new paragraph, I would go down here and I could hit the :P or $P, and I can say, this is a new paragraph, period. And then I hit close. I have to close it with a backslash. So if I don't hit that backslash, it won't be different. Now, if I run it, there is a paragraph space here between these two paragraphs. Okay, so there's ways to enter it and correct and do it. Now, if I don't like red, I can change this, and I think I can probably enter blue here because it should recognize some common colors. There are web colors. If I hit blue, you can see it changed it to blue. So this is the HTML code that is making things display on our web page. And every time you open up a web page in your browser, it is interpreting this HTML to determine what should be displayed and how it should be displayed. Let's try one more. This is another example of a title called a page title. That's another type of formatting. And here is my first heading. And here is my first paragraph. And you can see how the HTML code just kind of gives some commands in these little text HTML, these tags, Hypertext Markup Language, that tells your web browser how things should be displayed. So if we want to change this to my second heading, I can always just edit this. And if I click on run, it's like what run is like getting your web browser to display it. You can see it changed the text, but it did not change the formatting or anything else. So here's JavaScript, which exists. So JavaScript lets you create a button. It's actually a little bit of code. So that this is a JavaScript where it says button space type equals button. On click, you're telling it what to do when you click document.getElementById demo inner HTML date. That tells this basically a set of code functions that when you click on this button here, it's going to display the date and time. That's the command in the web browser HTML code that's telling it to do it. So it has displayed it in a particular format, and somebody that might want it in a simpler format could display it a little more simply. So these are all different ways you can create commands with HTML. The tool is done by w3schools.com. It's part of the World Wide Web Consortium. They actually have a free school that you can use and free tutorials that you can utilize. And it shows you how to change things on a web browser and format different things if you want to try different things out. And so you can actually do different things with HTML and try it yourself and change these. So that's where I got these out. So they have all kinds of examples. So here's one on links, for example, that shows the href W3 schools. I can change this to a different, you can see the text that just displays here says this is a link. That's the text that's displaying over here. But if I click on it, it'll take me to W3 schools. Okay, so that's what links do, is they're part of HTML. And so they have a whole school, a whole library of different tools that you can learn to follow examples in, and even more tutorials that you can follow, and different examples and exercises that you can try out if you're interested. Now, I mentioned HTML shorteners. Okay, HTML shorteners are what you can use to get a short, take a short HTML piece of HTML like a bit.ly or some other link, and you can find out what it is. So if I go here and enter a short URL, here's HTTPS, bit.ly, tech-free membership. I don't know where this goes to, but if I want to know where it goes to, I can click expand, and there it is. It's fetching the long URL. So here is the long URL down here. I'm sorry, it's a little bit hard to see. Let me magnify this a little bit and bring it up because they run ads and other things here. So, but you can see it's https://techexplorercommunity.com. And then it has information about the plan. So as long as it says techexplorercommunity.com, we know that's where it's taking us to. So if you had a short URL of any kind and you're wondering, where is this really going to take me to? Is it something I want to trust? You can go to any of these check short URL verifiers to find out what they do. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second and take a sip of water and see what kinds of questions people have or things they might want to try out about websites. Yeah, Carol.
So this try it thing is amazing because I was going to stuff like CodePen, and it kind of gets confusing. So this try it thingy, I can use my Java, my HTML, my CSS in one thingy here, or do I have to, because it seemed like on these other sites you had to pull in those other files from other locations.
I don't know how much they will let you paste and try things out. To be honest, I haven't tried that out, but you can check their tutorials to see what they offer with things like JavaScript and give you the ability to learn by examples or try things out. They're tutorials, so they may not be code interpreters so much. But, if you're wondering if you're doing any kind of coding and you're wondering if you have any errors or something that you want to correct in it, you can always input it into a GPT AI and it'll find errors for you in your code. That's what programmers are doing now. But yeah, I don't know. You can try pasting and let us know in the community if you tried pasting JavaScript and see if it lets you do that or not. And I know they have a lot of free tutorials because it's part of the World Wide Web Consortium, W3 Schools, but they also have certifications that they offer that are for a fee, but they're one of the most reasonable out there. Yeah, Joe. Hi.
Hi. One of the things that I get occasionally is I'll get an email, and the email will have, all the usual trappings of an HTML file. It'll have the graphics, it'll have the hyperlinks, it'll have all this kind of stuff. And either at the very top or at the very bottom, it's a promotional thing usually, and it'll say, click here if you would like to view this in your browser. Okay, which means it's an HTML file. The problem is with these posted in your browser, if you create a link to that, or if you use that URL that's generated by that, and you promote this with other people, usually somewhere at the bottom of that promotional item is something that says, if you want to unsubscribe, click here. Now, if you want to unsubscribe, click here, because that document that URL is linked to me, if somebody clicks on that unsubscribe, I'm going to lose my subscription.
They would unsubscribe you. Yeah, a click to unsubscribe is a HTML hypertext link that takes people to an unsubscribe page. Usually it asks them to verify it, but if you send out and forward that email that way with the unsubscribe link as part of what you forward, you're giving people the ability to unsubscribe you.
How do you get out of that? How do you remove that from the page?
You can edit, with a couple of ways. One is, if you wanted to forward something, you could go to what Joe is talking about. For those of you that may not know, is most email lists that send out emails give you the ability to click on a link to say, if you can't view this in your email software, click here to view it as a web page, and it will open up your web browser. But it also includes a link to subscribe, because if Joe subscribed to the email list, that link would be included in the body of the email message. So the best thing is to go to the web page link where people have the ability to read it and forward and copy and paste that in to your email to other people if you want to send it to people, or just include the link to the article where they can click on the link to the article, or just copy what you want to copy out of it and forward that part, without including the unsubscribe link. Because if you forward something, your email software is going to include everything that you attach if you want it. So then you can edit it after you put it in your forward before you click forward.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. It says click here to see it in your browser. And then I want to tell other people that it's available and they can see it in the browser. Okay, because I
Yeah.
can't edit it in my email. I
Well,
can't take
once
it
you click on forward, if it includes the body of the email, depending on how the email was constructed, you should have the ability to edit information out of it. But the best thing is to go to the web page where the article was listed and then just include that link and maybe a short copy and paste a short introductory paragraph and say, hey, this was interesting. I'd like you to know about it.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Sure. But HTML links are really versatile if you know how to use them. Usually with a Control K or a Command K, you can actually you can insert HTML links into Word documents, into Pages documents, into emails and other places that give you the ability to link to something for if you want people to understand that better or learn something or find something. Yeah, Melissa.
Hello. I had a question about the HTTP and the HTTPS. So I understand that the HTTPS means that it is a secure website. Not exactly sure what that is, but secure sounds good. But
Yeah.
every once in a while, I will come across a website that does not have the S in it. It says HTTP and it says that it is not secure. And my question is it if the site has information that I want to access or use that website, is that like really bad, like HTTP without the S? And why would a site have that I think is a legitimate site? I mean, I've had other people tell me about the site. I can give the example, manualsonline.com. Why would they have a site without the S?
Okay. If a site has an S on it, that's a World Wide Web Consortium standard for security that has 132-bit encryption. It's what makes e-commerce possible. Because when you enter a credit card number or information, it's encrypted, and it is virtually impossible to hack with the computers we have today. Maybe 50 years from now, they'll have computers that can hack it. And so that S made it possible to have secure transmissions. As soon as you send something from your computer out to the internet, it's encrypted. So if you aren't sending anything out, like just looking at information on a web page, the lack of an S doesn't really impact you very much, okay? Because you are not sending out any information, you're not filling out any forms, you're not using a credit card, you're not supplying any date of birth information or anything like that. You are just viewing the web page. Now, websites that have the S have to purchase a certificate called a security certificate from, just like we register domain names, websites that have a secure nomenclature have to purchase a security certificate that the World Wide Web standards recognize as a secure website. So I have a certificate of my own for bobology.com, and it's about $250 for a 2-year certificate. A Tech Explorer Community has a certificate that's provided by my web hosting service, but some small businesses that might have been out there that didn't use a web hosting service that includes a secure certificate might just have a non-secure. So you see a lot of clubs, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of old small communities that just have information on their website that never paid to register a secure certificate, and they might have had it with an older web hosting service that doesn't include the secure certificate. Most of the web hosting services that you pay a fee for now include a secure certificate, but even Blogger and Google Sites, which are free, include a secure certificate as part of their services. But if you ever registered your own domain name, you would need to purchase a secure certificate for that. And it costs a little bit of money, so not everybody has it.
Ah, okay. Okay. So if I understand correctly, if I heard everything right, as long as the site I'm going to, if it doesn't have the S for secure, as long as I'm not providing any personal information, as long as I'm no financial or credit card or anything, it's okay to be on the site to look up information that they provide. That's okay.
It's okay to view, right?
Okay.
It's okay to
Yes.
view and look at, right?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, because the tracking is going to, if there's any tracking that's taking place, it's taking place in the browser. The S is about encrypting information you input into a web form or other information.
Yeah, I'm
Now,
not setting up an account or anything like that.
don't set
Yeah,
up any accounts, don't
Right.
supply, don't enter anything into the website if it doesn't say S for secure, because it's not encrypted. Yeah, but as
Okay.
long as you're just viewing it, it's okay to view.
Okay. Thank you very much for clarifying.
My bicycle club that doesn't have a secure website, for example, but they don't.
Oh, okay.
They actually, for their dues, they take me to a different website that is secure to process my dues. So if somebody takes you to PayPal.com, for example, or another type of site where there's a secure processing, that's okay.
Okay.
Just don't do it. I always make sure your URL has the HTTPS in it, and you'll see a little lock symbol in your address bar as well that tells you the site's secure.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for clarifying that. I feel better.
Sure. I mean, websites are a lot of fun, and HTML links are a lot of fun because you can send people to places and give them links to places that they might not otherwise think about, and make it easier for people to find things. And being able to enter an HTML link, it means you're really taking advantage of the power of the web too. And like I say, Word documents, emails, anything can include an HTML link in it because they're all, supported by the web. And you can change HTML links as well. So let me go back to my W3 browser here and see what I can find, if I can find it here. So on this tutorial with HTML, and if I wanted to look at exercises here, let's see if I can find it. An element tells you the tag name and structure, page, HTML, gives you standard histories. Let's see if I can get back to where I want to be. Here we go. Tutorial, no. Okay, so here's different examples that we can look at, that we can find. So if I go to links, okay, this is a link to a specific web page. I can change this to, say, Tech Explorer Community. And if I run it now, this text that displays is called "This is a link." That's not going to change, but the reference that I made is different. So if I run this now, see, there's no change in the web page. But if I click on this, it's going to go to a different web page entirely. So let's see if I run this. Let me try something there. See if it runs that way. I think I already clicked on it, so I think it may not be functioning properly. So let's try this one more time. No, not sure what I'm doing wrong here. Let me try a different website. See if I can get it to go to Bobology. And if I can run that, if I run it, and then I click on the link, No, it's only going to work with certain demonstration sites here, it looks like. So it's a demonstration tool that gives me the possibility to do it in certain ways. So I mean, but you're able to. They're giving you examples. They give you examples to try a few things out, trying headings out that you might want to look at or try, different approaches you can take, paragraphs, HTML links. Let's see if we can try, so you can see that this is a link, and we can change the text here to be, this is not a link. Okay, and I can change this, run this, so you can see the text says now it's not a link, but it'll take me to the same thing. It'll take me to the same location here. So it's a way you can try, you can say, you can do something scammy like, okay, buy, free money now, okay, and if we run this, the text is free money now, but it's going to take me to w3schools.com. So you can see how what displays and what the link actually goes to. Now, if I right click on this, I can open this link in a new tab or copy the link address completely. So if I copy the link address, let's see if I can enter it in my browser here. You can see it pasted the link w3schools.com here, and that's where I know it's going to take me to. So one way to utilize and understand links better when you see them is right-click on them, and you can copy and paste them into your browser address bar to get to where you want to go. So that's just one of the things you can do. I mean, there's, as I mentioned, there's CSS, which is one of the types of code that styles a document. It's a more sophisticated format. HTML. There's something called JavaScript, which is a very common programming language that does things like, gives you forms to fill out or buttons. There's database tools like SQL, which is a very standard language for databases. There's languages like Python, which is very popular, Java, which is popular, PHP is another language, and then they have whole types of examples that give you the ability to do things like, this is a slideshow. You might have seen these on web pages, and you can scroll through different slides on a web page. Now, if you're interested in learning how to do this, you can click Learn How To, and this is called Learn How to Create a Slideshow or Carousel. Now, most web pages creators, most website hosting services like Weebly and Wix and others will tell you how to do it, but this is the actual code for creating a slideshow that it tells you. Now, the images, the image1.jpg tells you where the image file is located. It's on their system right now, but it tells you that there's a function called My Slides Fade. There's a caption text area. So if I can take this caption text and I can say landscape. Now it's not letting me edit here. It's just showing me the example here. Add the styles, and then it'll be a try it now here. So we can try it yourself, and you can see how it edited. So if I wanted to change this caption text, I would go down and find somewhere here where the caption text was located, and then I would be able to edit it. So you can see there's just a lot of code that determines what goes into this. So here's caption text where it's located. If I change my cursor, and if I can say landscape, 1 and I click run, you'll see it change the text of this to landscape 1. But the actual function, the software that makes this work, is all of this code here that somebody created to make this function as what's called a carousel. Okay, so a lot of it's easy to do, but a lot of it takes other work. So we can go to our home and we can go to different types of how-to functions, and we can look at different coding like C, C++, and others. So just SQL database, if you wanted to learn SQL, you can learn it. It'll help you understand certain functions that are in it and how to use it in your website. So you can draw things from customers. So it basically functions like an automated tool to be able to give you the ability to do things in selecting all records from a database. And so this will run SQL, edit the SQL statement, click Run SQL to see the results. Okay, so this pulled customer records up from a database. Okay, so I didn't have to do anything in terms of the SQL statement. The code is select space, asterisk space, from space, customers, a semicolon. That is a SQL command that says display all the customer records in this database. So it tells you what they are. So your database has 91 customers on 8 categories, 10 of them are employees, 518 orders, but it's basically a way for getting information out of a database and pulling it up onto a web page in a format. So just a tremendous So images are pulling different images here. So this is displaying an image from an image tag here. So an image would be a tag, something that displays an image, has a HTML tag that says img space src. That's the source, okay? And this is the file name of the image. Alt is for alternate code that can be read aloud for web page software that reads text aloud, because it can't read the image, but it can read what's called an alt tag. And this tells the web browser to make that image 104 pixels wide and 142 pixels tall. And that's how HTML images are defined. Yeah, Elizabeth? Go ahead and unmute.
That's what you need. This program, W3 Schools, this web page you need in order to build a website?
No, this is an educational site. This is designed to help you learn to code. So you don't need to do this to build a website. All you need is a website software. So this is helping you learn how to code. There are many other tools out there like Blogger, Google Sites that give you what are called WYSIWYG editors that make it easier for you to do it so that you don't have to know any HTML. You don't have to know any CSS, so that they make it transparent for you to do all of these things without needing to know how to code.
Oh, I see.
That's what it was. So GoDaddy, Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, Google Sites, Google Blogger, they give you the ability to do all of this without having to know anything about this software. But these are for people that want to learn to code. And if you know a little bit about coding, or you want to learn a little bit about coding, just the purpose of showing you this today was so you'd understood that HTML is basically a set of information that tells you web browser. So I'm looking at this on my web browser right now. I can go to another view. I can go to a view called developer that you don't see in my code. And I can see the HTML code. This is the HTML code that makes up everything I was looking at on that web page. And you can see at the beginning, it starts doc type HTML, and it ends at the bottom with /HTML. Everything in between is just pretty sophisticated so that I can, view it as I can see what happens here if I want to. You can do that with any web page so that you can get a developer view, but you don't have to do that.
But this particular one is what programmers need to do in order to. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
This is what programmers do, is they would have to know how to do these things. Exactly, Elizabeth.
Okay. All right.
So
Thank you.
This is why they're paid the money they're paid. Yes. Yeah, Carol, go ahead.
So this is a weird one, but I have a little website page. You've seen them. Remember, you took them all down. But anyway, which is good. I have a little image. It's a deer, and it's called image source equals photo/deer3.gif. Okay, I have it here, but it no longer moves because it's on the tripod site. They have all this other code, which I'm going through. I can't find what I did. Would you know, maybe they disconnected it because it moves? Since it's really part of the tripod or Lycos page, or could I find it in somewhere, like in some function? It would definitely be the photo/deer GIF that is being moved.
It's hard to diagnose website problems unless you know how they were created. The easiest thing to do is to copy all the HTML for that web page, paste it into an AI, and say, "Can you find any errors in this code?"
Okay.
That's what programmers do now. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Melissa. We'll take a couple more questions, then we'll wrap up.
Oh, my question was, with all this coding language and stuff that you've showed us, is bugs. So does a bug occur when there's a mistake in how the code has been written, and they discover that mistake, they fix it, and then they send us all for example, in my case, Apple iOS updates? Is it because there was a mistake made when somebody was doing the inputting? Is that what a bug is?
Well, a bug is a software error, okay? And it could be something that when they tested it, most big companies like Apple and Microsoft, they test their code, okay? And so somebody writes the first draft of a piece of code, they test it themselves, and then they get other testing tools to make sure it works pretty well. And then they release it to a little bit larger group of people because it might run okay on their computer, and it might have run through the tests they ran it through, but on somebody else's computer that has different software on it and other types of things, it might have an error. It might cause an error to occur. So this is why sometimes when Apple pushes out updates, some people experience issues and other people don't, because the software interacts with other software on your device. It just doesn't stand by itself. And so depending on what else you have installed on your device or other settings you might have set, because as soon as we get a computer or a smartphone in our hands, we personalize it. And they can't account for all the personalizations that take place with everybody, with millions and millions of people owning and using the software. And so that's why software companies update their software. Now, quality control can be done pretty good up to a certain point, but after a certain point, there might be, when they release a software into the public, they might discover, oh, people are telling us we've got this problem. People are telling us we've got this problem. And they find a bug that they have to fix, and so they issue a new software release. Now, the advantage of the web is that, let's say you're using Google Maps, for example, and Google Maps discovers that there was a problem with a route that they were giving people directions on. they can update the code on Google Maps. And every time everybody goes to Google Maps to use it on the web, they get the latest version. When we get an operating system that gets downloaded and installed on our computer or smartphone, we have to wait for the update to get downloaded to be able to access it. So websites, like that's why places like Amazon can change prices in a second, or airlines can change prices, in a second. As soon as they discover that there's a big demand for airlines flying to, Frankfurt or Australia, they can change their price in just seconds.
Okay, you solved another mystery for me with that explanation, because when I get those iOS updates, they will talk about what problems they're fixing. And I'm like, I'm not having that problem. But
Right.
You just answered that question of why I'm not having the problem, but other people are. So thank you for clearing up that mystery as well.
Great. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Well, is this a good idea to accept every update which is announced? I go.
What Apple and Microsoft and everybody that makes software will tell you is install the latest updates. Some people say wait a day or two before you install an updates, but some updates get installed automatically. And in general, from the big companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft and others, updating software with the latest update is the best thing to do. It's very, you don't, because they might not only be fixing a bug, and you may not be having the problem, but they also might be patching something from a security standpoint, which is why it's important to update software. But websites, as you can see, they don't have to download software for you to update a website. The website can update their own software on their website anytime they want to. And so the advantage of using the web is that we've got immediate updates from a website whenever we go to the website to see the latest information.
I see.
Hi, Carl.
Yeah,
So
I always said, I always said to myself, and maybe you all did the same thing. Why the heck doesn't Microsoft and Apple do the updates automatically? Like, why do I have to do the updates, right? And I think you just answered my question, because if I do the updates and something gets screwed up in then it's me. But if they do the updates and something gets screwed up, then I could blame them. So they'll never do the updates automatically. I never figured that out until just now.
Yeah, well, I have my Windows updates to update automatically. But for example, let's take a cloud service like Microsoft 365. We get the latest versions of software installed automatically because we subscribe to their software. In the old days, when we bought boxed software in stores, if you bought a version of software, you might get updates for it up to a certain time, but then they came out with a 2015 edition or a 2016 edition. And if you wanted to get the new edition, you had to go to the store and buy the new disc or CD, right? And then you installed that. Now with cloud-based software for so much of what we do, like Gmail, have you ever updated your Gmail software? No, because it updates on the web. It's a web service that updates on the web automatically. And so that's one of the advantages of having back-end software running on the internet as a web service, because they can update and add new functions to Gmail. They can add new features to the Edge browser. They can update functions, but like a certain types of things we might have on our computers, the software we use in our computers, they have to be downloaded and installed, which is one of the differences between why so many people talk about software as a service versus software that we download and use, and why there's advantages to having software as a service. So if you went and used the Google Docs, which is a web-based document, creation service, you're always going to get the latest version of Google Docs. If you use Apple's Pages, you have to have a downloaded version of Apple's Pages. If you use Microsoft Word on your computer, you have to have the latest version of Word. But if you use the web version of Word, you're always going to get the latest version of Word when you access it through a website, because you are connecting to their web software, not the software you're using on your computer. And
but I use it on my computer. I use, say, Microsoft 365 Word on my computer, right?
Yeah, you can use
Is that being updated, or do I have to update it?
That's an application that's installed on your computer, and that's being updated.
Oh, so I don't have to update it. It's being updated.
It's being updated automatically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's wonderful. I remember on the Apple when we used to have to actually update all the apps ourselves. Oh my gosh, so much time. But now it's just all done automatically. It's wonderful. Saves so much time for us.
And like I say, they can't test, they might test it, they'll test it in phases. So they'll do a small test group. I mean, a programmer will test it themselves first. And usually if it works, then they'll start to test it a little bit further with a little bit of group. Then they'll test it to a broader group, and then a broader group. And then you get a group of beta testers that test it. And then after that, you'll get what's called public release software. But even then, there are bugs that they find because everybody's device is different. We've got different settings. We've got different information. Now, Apple's a little bit more consistent because they make the hardware and the software, whereas other companies don't always make their own hardware and software as a package. I have a friend that has type 1 diabetes, and he uses a pump that's automated. The company makes the pump and the software for the pump, and so they control it very tightly in terms of any software updates that take place. But he has to download and install new software periodically for it, because it actually gets installed physically on a piece of hardware that he carries around with him. But yeah, I mean, so understanding updates, I'm glad updates, became a little bit of the explanation here too. But websites are great. You can try, using, and when you go to insert on any word processing software or slide software, one of the things you can insert is a link. So if you wanted to try a little homework assignment, try inserting a link into a document or an email or anything you send out to somebody now, and see what happens when you click on insert. Just look for the option to insert a link, and you can copy and paste a HTML, a hypertext link into that text field, and that'll become a link in whatever document you send out. So that's why a lot of Adobe PDF documents, for the longest time, for many, many years, a long time ago, they did not support links within the PDF document. But now within PDF documents, you can include web links, which is another reason why an ebook, made it with a PDF, has an advantage over a library book that has paper, because in the paper book, you can't have links. You have to spell them out. Somebody's got to copy, write it out, type it out, paste it. In the electronic document, people can just click on the HTML code, the link, and they're taken out to a website as long as they're online.
So, Bob, here's the problem, Bob, just about what I talked about a minute ago. So I have a PC and you have a PC. Mine's older and yours is newer. And we both decided this morning we're going to have updates automatic. And you get the updates automatic and everything's fine. I get the updates and something happened. Is Microsoft smart enough to know they shouldn't let me allow updates automatically? It won't work on my computer.
Yeah, they might. They usually can tell, with different versions. They'll test it before they release a major version of software. They'll test it with a lot of different types of hardware. They have hardware simulators that do it. that allow them to test it on various types of hardware and different functions, and it might not let you install the update. Like I know Apple does that with certain models of iPhones and iPads. If or Macs that get so old, and other things that usually there's a hardware detection function that says in order to run this software, you have to have a minimum certain hardware capability. That's why they do that, because they've tested it on that hardware capability, but they might not have tested it on an older piece of hardware, for example.
So I could get a message, Carl, we can't do it with you. No update. Sorry.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming today. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
We will see you again soon.
Thank you,
Bob.
Bob.
For the overtime.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. See you soon.